Welcome back to the Abundant Harvest Homestead. I'm Papa Pepper. Today I'm going to be encouraging people to realize what an NPC is and then not to be one. Now, of course, every single one of you guys is free to do whatsoever you want with your life. You've got this one life. Use it, invest it, waste it, however you see fit. But what I want to do is just make people aware of this idea and then how it relates to society, and then how it relates to your life, because if you're aware of things, sometimes you can make more informed decisions, choose the better option, live a better life, realize your purpose, those type of things. Now, an NPC comes from gaming. In video games, they're what people call NPCs, non-player characters. So they're a character in the game, but they're not a player. If you have certain games, there's just going to be a bunch of them walking around. And if we think about it in life, there's really some people who are trying to be the characters. There are some people who are trying to actually do things and accomplish things, and you're competition for that. If you look at people like, I'll say Gil Bates, Ted Turner, others, they're buying up property like crazy. They're some of the biggest landowners. Now, if that's part of their goal in the game that they're playing, and you also want to buy a whole bunch of land, then you're going to be competition for them. But if they can make you think that leasing or renting or something like that for your entire life is better, then you're going to be an NPC as it relates to that part of the game. You're not going to be in competition with them for acquiring certain assets, because you're just going to be renting or leasing or just on a treadmill where they're actually accomplishing things and building up something. So you're an NPC to them. If you think about even a lot of the government school system, a lot of people call it public school system, but it's not really by the public. It comes from the government. A lot of what the Department of Education puts out is determined by the Department of Labor. Why? Because they want you to kind of just be an NPC. They want you to be a non-player character. They want you to be an employee rather than building up your own empire, your own business, your own whatever. So the Department of Labor dictates the government school Department of Education, which generally just kind of teaches you to fill a certain niche in what's already the parameters of the, here's the employers, here's the big businesses, they need a bunch of little people to stock shelves, so we'll just condition you to do that. That's why even a decent amount of the public school stuff is measured in time served. It's hours. You need a certain number of hours to accomplish these things. So you kind of get used to punching a clock. A lot of people also compare it to the prison system, where you're in this institution, you're in these rooms for a certain amount of times, you get a little bit of yard time, you get a little bit of cafeteria time, and then you're back to your room. Yeah, I can see where a decent amount of conditioning takes place in that. But basically, the whole purpose of this is do not be influenced by the agendas, whether it's the media, whether it's television and the movies. I mean, these are things that are used to program people. They're used to expose people to certain ideas, to get people to think a certain way. Do you remember when all the good male role models were being removed? You had things like Al Bundy, Homer Simpson, all these other things where they're Family Guy, where what you would look on TV and see was just a whole bunch of not good male role models. Why? Because they don't want you to have a good male role model. I'm learning things now in my 40s that my children, 12 and under, are learning now as well. It took me this long to kind of deprogram myself from a lot of what I was exposed to and trained in to get to the point to think outside the box. I quit punching a clock for somebody else in 2015 when I quit my job. It was the best job I ever had. I quit it. And I sold my house to get out of the remaining debt we had, and I cashed in my 401k. And I said, I'm done with this. I'm moving into a different realm. And at that point, I began kind of in essence working for myself. I get jobs from other people or help other people with their work, but where I don't have an actual employer, where I'm dictating my time. If I need money, I'll choose to go to work. If I'm good financially and the work isn't really good paying, then I'll stay home and do something else. I didn't want to just be a spoke in the wheel anymore. I wanted to have an amount of freedom. I didn't want where 5 or 6 days a week from this time to this time I have to leave home every day of my life. Now, since I've done that, we ruled out debt when we sold our house. We said that's no longer an option. I was able to pay cash for my property, pay cash for my home, and we crossed debt off of the list. We crossed certain bills off of the list. I don't have rent. I don't have a mortgage. I barely pay property tax. It's absolutely amazing. Also, by freeing myself up with certain things, I began generating multiple streams of revenue. Sometimes I would leave home for certain kind of skilled tasks that I could accomplish for people. So I would leave home for those things. Then I would begin to blog online for cryptocurrency. Then I would begin to make YouTube videos. Then I would begin to open up an Etsy shop and sell things that we were generating from the property. Then I would begin to publish books. These are all new things for me since I moved down here. Since I moved to the Ozarks in 2015. I didn't have a YouTube channel before that. I never really, I didn't blog or do anything online for that. I didn't have an Etsy shop before that. I didn't publish any books before that. I didn't have these streams of revenue. But the cool thing is, by kind of just stepping out of being the spoke in the wheel, and even if you do those things in your spare time, then they may free you up to not sign up for, from the time I'm 20 till the time I'm 60, I'm going to work for this company. And some people like that. I'm not knocking it, but I'm saying you may want more from your life than I will give them 5 to 6 days a week for the best 40 years of my life when I'm actually an adult and free to do things and I have health. And then by the time I'm at the end of it, hopefully Social Security will still exist. Hopefully I'll be able to afford a couple vacations. Hopefully I'll still have my health and still be able to walk and still be able to get out there and do the things I wanted to do. That didn't fit right with me anymore. I said, no, I'm not really going to go down that path. I'm not going to do it that way. I want to try something else. And when I did, by having those multiple streams of revenue, sometimes some of them really do well. When Bugger was born, I took a 2-year break from working away from home. I was able to generate enough at home and on my computer that for the first 2 years of his life, I didn't need to leave home. That was incredible. But I couldn't have done it if I didn't make certain steps, changes in my life. And one thing too is if I would have had debt, I wouldn't have been able to do that. It would have been a much different scenario. So I want you guys to consider for a moment, to truly be free, you need somewhere to exist. If you don't really want to be a guest in somebody else's house, so to say, you need somewhere to exist. You're in a physical body that needs to inhabit some sort of physical space. If you can acquire a piece of property, especially a piece of property outside of an HOA, outside of a city, somewhere where you have a certain amount of your own personal jurisdiction over it, rather than just whatever jurisdiction you fall into, to begin to invest in that property, that's going to be best for you. A lot of the trees that were on this property, we've been using for certain things. As we're using some and phasing out of those, we're planting trees that bear food. As a physical being, I'm going to need that food. They don't really want us to be producers. They want us to be consumers. That's why, and think about this too. Back to the school system. They don't really teach you how to accomplish things. Okay? They don't really teach you how the world works. So many people graduate from school, they don't know how to cook. They don't know how to grow. They don't know how to take care of things. Why? Because you're being trained to be an employee. You're not being trained to be fiscally responsible. You're not being trained to consider the economic downfall that debt would provide for you. You're not being trained to think of the investment you get if you plant a fruit tree that bears pears, for instance, every year, versus what you would spend at the grocery store to get the equivalent of that over the next 20 years. You're not being trained to think these ways. I want to be a master of my own domain. I want to be able to be in an environment and then get to learn that environment to the point that it's really successful. that I'm really mastering that domain, that it is an abundant harvest of a homestead, not just a homestead. I want to do things like this where I can head out with my children and go catch 12 gar in a row in the matter of like 3 hours and feed my family multiple meals, so we can be out there enjoying some time at the lake in our kayaks, building our own relationships one with another, and come home and feed the family. Next time I went out, we went and caught 9 gar. Okay, man will tell you that's trash fish, but I'll tell you what, that is food fish, and we really enjoy it. There's some incredible videos we're working on our other channel, our backup channel, our fishing channel. Check that stuff out. It is absolutely wild. But I have an opportunity to live here close to the lake. If I had it all to do over again, I would make sure I lived close to a lake. But I can drive to the nearest spot, I can drive up to the water, put in my kayaks, barely paddle anywhere, and start dropping jugs and catching fish like that. That's part of mastering my domain. You should see it when the carp spawn down there, how much food we get out of there. I'm living in this environment where I have this property where it's a very cost-effective property and also a way for me to build wealth. My property here, just land alone, has only gone up in value since we got it. Also, because we're doing things to improve the property, we're adding value to it. You know, I want to live a life that makes sense. If I got a smokehouse and I got hickory from my own property I'm smoking with, I don't mind if a chicken sets up shop in there and starts hatching out more chickens. Why? Because one day those baby chickens will probably wind up in that smokehouse. They'll probably wind up in that smokehouse, but I got no electricity invested in a chicken sitting on those eggs. The roosters breed the hens. They work together to make the next generation. We can make the next generation the ones that do a good job laying eggs. We'll let them live and lay eggs for a while. The ones that we don't need, we can eat. I want to live a life that makes sense. I don't want to be an NPC. I don't want to be just somebody else is playing the game. Somebody else is working on the things, and I just happen to be there in the background, kind of supporting their game, supporting their system. It's not ideal for me. It's not what I want. And even, I mean, look at what they're doing to men and to women. Men, it's no longer encouraged to be a father, to be a provider. Women, it's no longer encouraged to really just give birth, even make the next generation. Somehow working at a gas station or stocking shelves or something else, that's more important. Are you kidding me? That's more important than having a family? We're being brainwashed to fit into somebody else's system. What? I was looking for that. Wow. I was looking for that. So that's a horn from one of our goats. And even that, do you know I can eat sheep and goats and then sell the skulls and make money off my dinner that I raised myself? I'm also reminded as I'm on this topic, guys, part of mastering my domain has been learning to grow things in the garden. And I'm learning to grow, I'm learning to save seeds. A lot of it, the majority of my life as far as learning gardening and doing it, has been since I've lived here. Well, my children are able to learn as I'm learning because they're there with me. And I have 2-year-old children that have been able to save seeds for my family. And we've saved what we needed, and then we sold the extra. You know, that's absolutely fantastically amazing. But part of it is anything that could potentially grow here on my property, I don't mind giving a chance, testing it out. And if it grows really well, then that's what I'm going to eat. That's what I'm gonna like. I got a video about why I'm such a successful gardener. Sometimes you just got to get over yourself and do what makes sense. A lot of people are gonna have an uphill battle their entire life because they're never gonna be able to get over themselves. They've just become so big, they can't get over themselves. It's gonna set them up for failure. It's gonna set them up for struggle. My life is rough enough just with existence. Why make it more difficult for yourself? But part of it in trying all of our different seeds and different stuff has been getting some from Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. I was there before with a man, love this guy, he's a great guy, definitely learned a lot from him. And he was talking about Jared Gettle, the guy who started Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. And he was looking around there and he said, this guy has pretty much just made his own little kingdom. He's made his own little paradise. And essentially, if you're not an NPC, if you're not a non-player character, you should be working towards building your own little paradise, your own little kingdom. If you're going to be somewhere, if you're going to have stewardship of something, why not make it awesome? Why not make it wonderful? Why not be, the king of your own castle, but actually have a castle that's in your jurisdiction, that's under your stewardship? I looked at the guy who said that, about him building his own little paradise there, his own little kingdom there. I'm like, well, isn't that what we're all supposed to do? And the guy I was talking to, I will say, there's many things in his life that he's done that when I'm at his property, I'm like, wow, I would testify that I believe this guy is doing that. That's my belief. I think if he stepped back and evaluated the picture, he would agree with the same thing. But again, to take jurisdiction of something, to take stewardship, ownership, responsibility for something, you have to have something. You have to be able to be over the top of something, acquire something. And like I said too, it's a way to build assets. It's a way to protect your finances. It's amazing. A young guy was driving by one day and he showed me his truck. And he's young, maybe 19. And he gave me the list price, or what he paid for his truck. He told me the amount and I looked at him and I said, wow, that's just a little more than I paid for my land and my house. And you should have seen his face. And that's part of the reason I said it the way I did. Because for him, he's just thinking like, well, that's what new trucks cost. Apparently I should get a new truck, so that's what I'm going to do. And once I kind of compared it to the fact, really, I could have bought my vehicles. I could have bought both my vehicles and my property and my house for what he paid for a truck. And if he was 19 and if he chose to do the same things I did, that I did when I was like in my late 30s, boy, his entire life from there out would be different. But he's choosing a different path. He's going down a different road. He's going down the road of, who knows, paying for the next 5 years or more on his vehicle, of not acquiring property, of not, acquiring a home. That's what we're encouraged to do. We're encouraged just to stay on that treadmill. I think it's dangerous. I don't think it's wise. And I think if we're aware of it, then maybe we'll wake up and we'll think a little more, put forth a little more effort into the thought process. For me, I have a video, it's called, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I say no. I'll link it up here. It's part of why I live the way that I do. Because I have certain identities that I take on, who I am to God, who I am to my wife, and who I am to my children, and everything else fits underneath that or comes after that. There's nothing that tops those priorities. So then how I operate and behave falls under those umbrellas. And if we don't know who we are, if we don't know our goals, think about it. Our life will take a whole different path. How many people just, country mouse, city mouse, the country mouse is an idiot. We're going to be the impressive city mice. We're going to wear expensive clothes that we spend a lot of money on. We're going to live in studio apartments that we spend a lot of money on. We're going to, lease cars that we spend a lot of money on. We're going to work this job constantly. And then on the weekends, we're going to take expensive trips and we're just going to go deeper and deeper into debt. Or even if we're just only spending what we make, we don't have anything left. And the second you stop having that same income, it's checkmate endgame. You've got nothing left because you never acquired anything. You never built wealth. You never took jurisdiction of things. We were just sorting through some stuff as a family the other night. Some of it was things that I have prepared for my children's future. When they get married and leave home, I want to be able to bless them. I want to have done things now and earlier in my life that set them up for success. And they may need a vehicle one day. They may need property one day. They may need a home one day. And if I'm able to sit there and send them on to the next chapter of their life with a blessing like that can help them in those goals, that's going to go a long way. And, I got a bunch of, there's guinea geese beginning to head through the woods back there. There's a hen that's raising them. There's sheep back in the woods over there. Okay? My children know and understand, because they're the ones who do the chores, how it all works. They've set up some of the breeding programs we got. They're the ones running a lot of the things around here. But they know. If we do a good job with our rabbits now, and if rabbit manure is good for the garden, then when they depart, when they get married and start their own life, if they're going to live a similar lifestyle, or they're going to want rabbit manure, then they'll have some to take with them from here. If they're going to want lawnmowers, which is what our sheep are, the lawnmowers fertilize as they go, they're edible, they provide wool, they provide milk, they reproduce after their own kind. I may never need to buy sheep again if we do a good job. And if we do a good job, then my children may never need to buy sheep again. They may be able to take some of our flock with them as they continue on. And if they need some new genetics, swap a couple with somebody else. But same thing with the guineas, with the Muscovy ducks, with the chickens. If we do a good job with them, then as they continue on with their life, they can take that stuff. They don't need, I had to buy or acquire every animal we have. But since then, they should be growing. I should be getting more and more without having to buy more and more, even if we're eating a bunch. And we're eating a bunch. But I want them to not only have money, for the future. The money that I'm providing for their future is to acquire assets, to take stewardship and jurisdiction of something, to have responsibility over something. But to have animals that make sense. Meat, milk, eggs. And then also to have that skill set. Like I said, my children don't have to continue on in a similar lifestyle to me. But if they want to, wow. My boy is 9, monster truck. They pull in Gar and pull them up by themselves at the lake jug fishing. Oh yeah, it's a Gar. It's a good size. You got it. It's right beneath you. Can you grab that? Oh, get it. Dude. That's my boy. It's a good sized Gar, dude. We get home and clean him. And he goes, hey, can I help? And he starts snipping through their scales and then pulling out the meat. I know grown men who are intimidated to try to do that with a Gar. To even grab one at the lake, sure. But then to go in there and get the meat out. Well, I've got a 9-year-old son who can do that. Why? Because I want him to be a player. I want him to determine his identities, who he is to God, who he is to his wife one day, who he is to his children, if they have children, and to understand how the rest of life fits underneath that. I want him to understand, honestly, guys, this is the world we were meant to be in. When the world was perfect, it was a man and his wife in a garden with some animals. It was not a man on the pavement under a high-rise begging for change. It's not how the world was. If it was a good enough environment for the world being perfect, it's a good enough environment for me now. And I'm trying to kind of not go feral, but rewild myself. Get reacquainted with the real world, with how things actually work, with the environment that we were made to be in. And like I said, not just to be a spoke in somebody else's wheel, not just to be a background character in my own life. I think about it, guys. There's people who, when they're not at work, they just watch TV. And they live vicariously through others. Nothing wrong with living vicariously through others, but if you just sit there and you watch TV, I mean, that's what your life is for? To go punch the clock for somebody else to make them a bunch of money so you can have some, and watch television, watch movies. Some people it's, you know, get drunk and get high and play video games. Like, that's your life? And that's one of the big pushes too with video games even. People need to accomplish something. People need to feel like they've done something. So if you can sit there staring at a television, wiggling your thumbs, and thinking that you're conquering worlds, you're gonna have that part of your life filled that says, I need to accomplish something, without actually doing anything, without actually being an active player in the real world. I don't need to change the world. I don't need to keep up with the Joneses. I don't need to be famous. I don't need to be a movie star or be a politician or be on the world stage or anything like that. But my life is not going to be defined by what I do for work. And it's not going to be a long series of events that somebody else chose for me. I love my wife, I love my children, I love spending time with them, I love interacting with them, I love being out here in the real world. And if we're doing something to provide for the family, gardening, taking care of the animals, fishing, foraging, you know, saving seeds, to be doing it together. Those are my second and third most important relationships. Well, how do you work in a relationship? You spend time together and you interact. I'm not going to do that at the warehouse. I'm not going to do that at the office. I'm not going to do that if I'm a non-player character. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. That's just a little bit more of what goes on inside my head. And as I try to evaluate the world in which we live, I want to kind of have a litmus test. I want to kind of have a way to check the bearings and to see how what I'm trying to accomplish, how that's trying to be influenced in opposite directions by others. I don't want to play their game. I want to be the player in my own game. And I take that game very seriously. It's my life. It's the one that I got. So I got to go make some more progress on this homestead. Thank you guys for watching. If there's other things that fall into this category or that you guys think about as I mention what I did, feel free to leave them in the comment section for me and others to think about. You know, it's important. We got this one chance. I wish it didn't take me so long to figure this stuff out. I'm glad I'm able to at least make my children aware at this stage of the game, so that way as they move forward, they can realize a few things. I want to set them up for success, but if they're ignorant, if they don't know, they're not going to be able to succeed. And success in this world is not my objective. It's success according to me, to how I determine life, not the government, not society, not the elite, if that makes sense. So we'll see you next time. Papa out.
Thank you for watching. And the left button. Thumbs up. For real.
So funny. The cow head is good?
Yeah.
That's because you know.